Now, I want to talk here about burning out, because there's been a bit of talk around this the past couple of days. We've had the Western Australian Premier, and you know my feelings about not caring about him leaving the job. We know CEOs, footballers, all the rest of it. And sure, there is no doubt a thing called burning out. But Matt Canavan, I couldn't help but think about the person who may well burn out but doesn't work in a job that's privileged enough to pull the pin, doesn't have enough money to pull the pin. There are plenty of people who work the tools, and it doesn't matter what they are, be the scissors of a hairdresser to somebody deep down a mine. There are millions of Australians who are burnt out by running their small business, but the reality is they can't pull the pin because they don't have the money to. So I thought this was a very sort of front end of the plane conversation that's being run in the media about burnout and how we handle it.
Yeah, it's a good point, Paul. I mean, look, it can be a high pressure environment in sports and politics, and that has a certain impact. And look, I mean, but you're absolutely right. I mean, the people who have to, go away from home in our fly-out mining workforce, they spend ages away from their families. My father-in-law was an interstate truckie. When I first started dating my wife, I didn't see him for the first few months, even though I was around that place all the time, because he was never home. So they got it really, really tough, people like that, and they go completely unheralded. So good on you for raising that issue. And look, I don't think I'm not that. I read that article and didn't think it was. Look, it's not a bad thing that we have changeover in leaders. I think it's not a bad thing that we don't have a permanent politicocracy here that's ruling over us. So look, it is perhaps a function of modern life and 24/7 life, but then again, it's not such a bad thing. No one needs to cry for these people, as you say, because they'll go on to bigger and better things in their life, and a fresh new generation will come forward to hopefully bring new ideas through.
Yeah, Linda, my favourite thing about a Sunday night is sometimes we can have the adult conversation that isn't necessarily about the news. And I think the reality is that all of us at some point in time, regardless of what job we do, will have times where, you're over it, you don't, whatever it happens to be, the exhaustion, and burnout, right, is sort of the easy way of talking about it. But for the extreme majority of people, they can't walk away. So how do people better cope? I mean, are you the type of person who's my watch says I have to breathe, therefore I breathe? Are you the type of person who thinks you pick up the phone and talk to someone, you go to your boss? Like, how do you survive burnout?
It's such a good question, isn't it? You are asking me this because I trained as a psychologist, and I always talk to my friends and family and people I know about the importance of just taking time out, whether it's just sitting and reading a book or doing some exercise. Just going for a walk can actually make you feel so much better. And I know everyone will be shattered with this, but I do want to agree with Matt Canavan in saying that leaders can often actually carve that space out in a way that everyday people who are working, sometimes 7 days a week, just they don't have control over their shifts, they don't have control over their working hours, they don't have control about when they can see their family. That's so much more stressful than for a leader like the Premier of Western Australia, or like the CEO of Qantas, or like the former Prime Minister of New Zealand. All, really good people, but they had control ultimately over when they worked and when they didn't.
If you're running a fish and chip shop for 7 days a week,
you don't have
no
that
option.
Control. And it makes such a difference to your mental health.
Well, and it's this thing where look, I think that all of us are sort of old enough to remember when TV shows and it was all about raising awareness. We are now very much aware of mental health. We're aware of it in our organisations, we're aware of it in ourselves, we're aware of it in our own families. But I do think that it's important that for all of the money and all the conversations that get spent, that we also start to turn around to deal with things like this, about how do you help someone who's on the great treadmill of life, because the reality is it is a great treadmill of life. In fact, this weekend I was watching an amazing documentary. Are you sitting down, Matt? I'm sorry, this may shock. Can we get a two-shot? Because I'm probably going to disappoint the great man, okay? I watched a documentary by Barack Obama.
Wow.
Okay, now it is. Yeah, just settle down. I wasn't happy with this capitalism bit, but basically, it's a television version of a book that was around in the 1960s that he read as a young sort of right-on man, and it was just about going around and talking to people about what it's like to work, what it's like for them to do what they do. Now, it's a 4-part thing. It's on Netflix. I'll give you the tip. Ignore the last 3. But the first one is about talking to normal working people at the absolute low end of things. And if you've been lucky enough to go to America, geez, we're lucky we live in Australia, that the minimum wage here is not $3, $5 like so many of these people live and learn. But I think this topic jumped out at me, Matt, because again, we talk about people at the very end of the financial side of society as just sort of one big amorphous blob of people called workers. But the reality is that they come in lots of different forms. And dare I say, when somebody's cleaning a hotel room, say hello to them. When you go to the servo, that's a human being that you are paying. Ask them how their day is. When you go in and out of a business, I'll never forget. After the 2019 election, I was honoured enough to have the first interview with the returned Prime Minister here on telly. And a bunch of media people were all sitting around going, well, Bill Shorten, which it was just a message. He was the guy who should have... And who is this so-called forgotten Australians? And I asked them, I said, just what was the name of the receptionist who let you in downstairs? Was it a man or a woman? Welcome to the forgotten people. Welcome to the silent people. Welcome to the people who are so often ignored. And I just think, Matt, as uncool as it may be, to actually reach out and understand how our society is actually put together is something worth talking about on a national telly show rather than just turning around and talking about the politics of servicing voters. Absolutely. Or that awful word punter, which I hate.
No, absolutely, Paul. And when I say things when I'm on the media, I'm always trying to picture someone like that and what they would like me to do and hear, because I'm here to represent them. And you're absolutely right that they're the people that make our society and community work. I look, we're having these long and deep and meaningful conversations, and I'll just add something else to the mix here. I do think one of the issues in our modern life, it's not so much the 24/7 stuff that gets overblown. It's just that we've turned our community, turned our society into something that's very self-centred. And even in our way we talk about mental health, we sort of imply that it's up to you. It's up to you to fix things. And we put the weight of the world on people's shoulders through our modern sense of the world. And look, for what it's worth, I'm not here to proselytise, but I pray. That's what helps me. I just pray. And what that does, and whether it's meditating or praying, what that does is it takes that world off your shoulders. Because it's not about you, it's about some other person's plan.
Really,
and you're absolutely right there to think about how other people feel and how others do. You don't have to fix everything yourself. It's not all up to you. And as I say, I think the pressure we put on people in modern life perhaps plays a bit of the role in some of the mental health issues we see arise in the last few decades.
See, I love this deep and meaningful. You think it's 3 o'clock in the morning, but it's not even 10 o'clock at night. Plenty of time to have the chat.